Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Train Man, and I'm sorry if I sound like I'm losing my voice. I might be, as a matter of fact, but I don't really know. We'll find out if it disappears. Anyways, I started out this episode going back to what we were working on last episode, and that was this big mountain ridge that kind of is actually pretty bland, but it just serves to be a backdrop and a divider between the forest that we already have or the forest that we're going to have, actually, by the end of this episode, or at the end of this episode, actually, and the stuff that's on the other side of the ridge, which is the 2-foot gauge, which already has a spot for a forest, I think? Either that or I finished that this episode once again. So I'm doing the midpoint method, but I'm kind of doing it all at once. I don't know why. If I was going to go from one side, I should have just... Or if I was going to do this, I should have just gone from one side to keep everything kind of consistent. As you see, I moved one of the spline points out of the way there. Clicked that a bunch of times, realized it wouldn't work, came up here and finished them up. Again, we get our striations, but this, well, of course, it isn't a particularly detailed section of mountains, and I don't care too much about it, so it's just, you know, it's fine if it's a little bit chacoid. You're not going to be looking at it very often, or very much. Well, actually, you might be looking at it very often if you go over TARDIS Pass a lot. And we talked about, last episode we talked about the significant quantity of things that will be going over TARDIS Pass, which includes through freights, turns, express and local passenger services. By through freights, I meant unit trains. Among other things. Either way, if you are doing a session with this, and of course, on the most recent version of the alpha, which is going to be coming out when? I don't remember when I said that would happen. Probably every 10 episodes, maybe every time I finish something, actually would be a better... Yeah, it's going to be that. Okay, nailing that down right now. It's probably what I said before, but I don't quite remember. You will be receiving a new version of the alpha, and that's a backup of the map. Every time I finish a section and we go for another vote. Now, if you can't tell, it might be a little while before I finish the Arturo section, but I'm going to try and keep things interesting. Frankly, my unspoken kind of ideal lately has been to work on 2 things an episode. One of them normally ends up being terraining, and the other one, more recently, has been building, working on Arturo. And that, I'm not sure how much of that we do, but either way, it becomes terraining and texturing, although at some point I will run out of terraining, and thus want to move on to something else. I'm not sure what else we will be able to move on to, though, and that's the problem, and that, essentially, it's letting me skimp on my work here. Me saying, I wish I could, move on to something else part-time and spend a lot of time texturing as well, just to kind of break the monotony of the episodes. Of course, there's always the thing that I could texture multiple different things in an episode, and that would lead to a lot of or it would at least lead to some variation in what I was putting out. This whole voice thing is really kind of inopportune, considering I have a choir concert in 2 days. Not 2 days. 3 days. No, 2 days. 2 days and 3 days. I have 2 choir concerts in a row. Great job. Of course, when you see this video, those concerts will have already passed, and I'd probably be griping about how I lost my voice and couldn't sing in the concert. Great job, me. Anyways, we go back to work on these areas. These areas do get wrapped up. At least a considerable number of them. I do have missing mountain bits eventually, or later, soon, by the end of this episode. I still do, is what I mean. This end here, though, is kind of the bane of my existence. Has been lately, when I was trying to work on it, because the slopes are so weird, and I've spent a lot of time fixing individual sections, and just kind of wrapping up, or kind of smoothing out, the striations that we ended up getting. That was actually some good luck right there, in terms of getting that to be pretty flat. Last week I talked about having a plane tool, and I don't mean an airplane, I mean mark out an area, and have the computer flatten it so that it looks, I'm not really sure how to say it, just so that you have a flat plane on a triangular area that may or may not encompass 3 dimensions, well, that would encompass 3 dimensions. So, like, I could pick the side of a mountain, one of these triangular sections that I'm working on, and say, plane this, and it would just make it a flat triangle. And by flat, I don't mean flat on the ground. I should say smooth. Smooth is a better term. Something that was getting at me when I was working on this was the fact that down near the bottom here, we have a very abrupt change from slope to ground. And now, if this was any closer to the tracks, or if it was significantly closer to the tracks, I would spend a significant amount of time trying to keep that from being so abrupt. Instead, I don't give a damn, because it's out in the middle of nowhere. As you'll see when we come to the end of this episode, also I was quite tired when I was working on this. So please forgive my incompetence. And my kind of panning the camera around looking for something in particular and going, what is that? And then realizing what it is, coming over here, looking around, going here, and placing down more trees. Because that's what occurred to me to do. So we did the trees. I felt like I wasn't productive enough this episode, I'll be honest. So we put down these trees in this area around Arturo. Little ones as well. And is that it? I think that's about it. I just put trees down, and then I come here and do a bunch of texturing. One of the things, I go over to Susqueca and then forget why I was there, and then eventually figure it out, is that I want the texture for the roadbed that I'm using. Instead, I get distracted and work on this. But I come up and down many, many times and work on our big trapezoidal or rectangular section. I suppose it really isn't either, but if you wanted to get into the specifics of it, it's probably kind of just irregular. But it's got straight sides, they're somewhat parallel. We've got a grid system to work with here anyways, not that we paid that much attention to it. Although, if you will notice, I am using the grid to space my things here. Missed one. Yeah. So the mountainside's abrupt end doesn't matter to me because it's A, it's far from the tracks, and B, it's sitting behind trees. And the trees do good at concealing, and the mountain just does a good job of looking enormous. Which is kind of the only thing these guys are good at, just looking way bigger than they are. They're not that big, but they're pretty sizable for the amount of area that they take up. I found myself repeatedly having to scoot these guys towards the edge. Also, I started using the map to get up and down quicker. Also, I really need to learn the hotkeys. But aside from the alsos, we get this pretty far. I don't think I was actually paying attention to how far I was getting it. I was just kind of aimlessly placing spline point after spline point. Yeah. So what is that? I can't really see what's on the screen when I'm doing this. I have the video up on the video editor, because that's how I compress it down to a third of the speed. And I have trouble telling exactly what's on the screen sometimes. I just have a vague idea. I can't read any text or anything like that. But anyways, so yeah, we work out this section here. This episode is mostly mountaining, and unfortunately, it's not even very interesting mountaining. I wouldn't fault you if you decided to bail on me here. I mean, I see some stuff where it looks more colorful later, but the only really interesting thing happens down at the end of the episode, where we've got where I'm just throwing forests all over the place, and even that isn't really special. You guys have seen it before. Next time, I'll probably try and put a lot of effort towards texturing. Oh yeah, make a triangle here. Once again, planer tool would be great. We've got some areas on the other side that I know we can work on, and that's probably what the focus is going to be of next episode. Hopefully I'll remember to do some serious texturing on this mountain and the other mountains that we've been working on for so long. Well, also, where did I say that river was going to go, and why would I finish it right now? By the way, what I'm going to work on is going to be bounded by whatever railroad tracks and or the edge of the map that I'm working on at the moment. That sentence was misordered. Anyways, my point is that if something lies outside of a section of track, I'm not going to work on it until we get that track ended, and then I will work on both sides of said track. That's why I'm linking the other big jobs, the other big redos, I should say, which is Tamaros and El Dorado Canyon, to other projects, because those other projects have stuff to do with those respective entities. For example, Tamaros I've tentatively linked to the Tamaros to Portal section, because that Tamaros to Portal will encompass not just the end of the main line, and the redux of Tamaros itself. It'll encompass the little section of narrow gauge, the little section of 2-foot gauge that used to be part of the roller coaster, or that used to be the roller coaster, and that farm down there with the rusty track, which I'm probably going to replace with decent track when I get around to it, because, well, if we're going to be running stuff down there anyways, why not have good looking track to put it on? Rusty track won't do us justice. I don't know why I go for the triangles more than I do for the other things. I mean, I feel like it's probably an engineering thing, because triangles are pretty easy to work with, and they won't fall apart on you. I'm sure there's a different logical reason for choosing triangles. Probably in a planar sense, because every rectangle can be broken down into 2 triangles, and rectangles aren't very good at covering an area particularly well, at least following contours wise, even if you can get them really small, because they only have right angles. Triangles, on the other hand, you can connect any points you feel like, and still have them make a decent plane. I mean, you can see that actually on the squares that we're using on the board here. If you'll notice, a lot of them do conform to whatever you're doing like squares, where the 4 points of said square kind of dictate where it's going to aim, but if you have certain arrangements of the corners, you end up breaking that square into 2 triangles. Of course, the yellow line doesn't appear to make it a triangle, but you guys probably know what I'm talking about, or at least you've seen it, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you have seen it. Unless you're brand new to the series, in which case, welcome. So yeah, come over here. I get distracted on tossing in a weird 3-foot gauge line that would mirror the 2-foot gauge, and kind of wondering why we don't have that. Mostly because I just wanted it to dead end somewhere. And it would be like the 2-foot gauge that aims at Temeros, where it doesn't actually reach it, it just sort of looks like it ought to. So I finally put down the quote-unquote roadbed for this area. Do realize that when I build this mountain for realsies, I'm going to have to redo the embankments and all these tracks, but that's going to be just fine. That mountain right there and the stuff on the other side of those tracks there is going to be done when we do Arturo to Hapston Cliffs, I think it is, and Arturo to Meast, which once again needs to be renamed. So I ended up using that as our fill-in for the bottom of the pulp mill there. Maybe not the best decision, but that's what ended up turning out. The reason I don't feel like this episode was productive is because I spent so much time on that mountain and didn't actually finish it. And it's me going, I didn't actually wrap anything up, so in my head, nothing was done, because nothing was finished. Also, I spend a good amount of time staring at the islands here going, if I wanted to put a rail network out to these islands which need to be covered in dead trees sooner or later, where would it go? Do I put some trees on this? I ought to have. I hate what I keep doing, which is put down some stuff, put some trees on it, and then figure I'm done placing trees, and then go back and put down some more ground cover, and then put more trees on it. And I'm looking at this area going, I need to finish that area as well. That's one of the other things. There are going to be two areas that are going to heavily depend on scenery. One of them is the 2-foot gauge line. Both of them border the 2-foot gauge. One is the other side of that canyon right there, the valley, which borders Skyfall Ridge. And the other one is this valley right here. I'm not much for making mountains look pretty. I guess it's the valleys that are the best. I started scrolling in here looking for ways to make this look sort of like flowing water. Didn't like any of them. I need to go on one of those maps and figure out what they used to do that, but oh well. So fill in this bottom here. Just to have it done. We're probably not going to work on anything on the other side of that river or canyon until we do Arturo to Meast. It's honestly the point where I have to go, okay, I need to stop here or else I'm just going to be terraining forever and never move on to what needs to be done after that, which is texturing, and then of course the vote that comes after it. I mean, ideally, I don't think it's going to happen, but ideally I'd have most, if not all, of the texturing for Temeros to Arturo done by episode 103, which is our next run session. I know I talked about at one point having a run session for episode 100 as well, but not enough will be changed for me to want to do that. It just, we've covered, one of the greatest things about having those run sessions is getting to screw with the areas of the map that we haven't yet. Like, I ran a train over TARDIS Pass and met another train coming over TARDIS Pass from Arturo. Originally the plan was to run 2 trains over TARDIS Pass, but I ended up not having the time for that. Anyways, I feel like the people that have, at least the people that I know that have the alpha have been enjoying it, other than getting stuck on hills, which is the Temeros experience. That should totally be a tagline now, getting stuck on hills, the Temeros experience. Just don't make that the tagline of the railroad. Temeros Van Anaconda Railway, we get stuck on hills. Yeah, no. I don't see that going over well with the PR guys, if you want to make that way. Anyways, yeah, this is one of the areas that I spent too long on. In my opinion, I felt like I spent, you know, too much trying to work out the striations in an area that someone would very rarely see. Once again, it's just kind of a backdrop section. I'm pretty sure it's hiding behind another ridge anyways. Or sort of. Not much of a ridge, but sort of. We decided to fill in this last section here. I'm pretty sure this is, if I look closely and remember correctly, this is one of the last sections over here that is to work on in terms of terraining, and then we can start, I guess, texturing from this way over and hope that our texturing doesn't catch up with our terraining. This area would be the first candidate for terraining, or for texturing, other than the kind of valley. The valley on the other side, the 2-foot gauge and Skyfall Ridge Valley, doesn't have enough material yet. Like, it doesn't have all the walls built yet. But this section is pretty much all set. At least this side of the mountain. We don't get all of the end bits done, as in the other end. You guys will see me, over there. If I get over there, come on, go over there. Come on, me. Come on, old me. What are you doing? Staring at stuff. Either way, you can see there, I can see at least, there aren't any huge gaps in that mountainous section anymore. Oh yeah, this is me staring at grades and going, oh my god, I'm ridiculous. And then I decide to add a little helper siding. Actually, what I really decided to do is take that siding which was supposed to be abandoned and attach it up, because why not? There we go. And then I give that little bit of a pat down in terms of getting them all set. So I think we put a line through to there, like so. Do we actually finish the section? Do we actually work on this section? I don't see myself working on that section. I'm pretty sure I got distracted and did, yeah, this. Don't remember if I finished this, actually. I might have, but this was probably one of the hardest sections to do. Well, when I was looking at it, I went, oh, this is going to be terror bad. It turned out pretty bad. Not in terms of looking, just in terms of it took a lot of doing to get it to look anywhere close to decent. Decent for me, at least. Toss those guys. There we are. Anyways, these whole sections are just kind of pains in the rear. I probably should have seen it coming with the way I brought the bottom area to a point. But, oh well, this is just kind of what happened. And I ended up kind of giving it a little bit of a leveling out section there, because that area looked a little bit too harsh, even for me. And it's not going to be hidden behind as many trees, so it kind of needed to be a little bit less, or a little bit more subtle. Of course, you're not going to be subtle with a giant mountain there, but more subtle. So we've got this whole thing to work on. I'm really just kind of reiterating the same points now. I mean, I feel like I'm running out of voice and running out of mind. But those of you that know me know I ran out of mind a long time ago. It's only your luck that I'm suddenly running out of voice. I think, yeah, okay. Now I kind of start wrapping up stuff for the episode. This is one of the last things I do. And it's very hasty. It's kind of not so well done. But honestly, it's a forest, and who's going to complain that much about the forest? It doesn't look, it doesn't look bad, per se. I mean, it's kind of... If you look at it on the map, you'll see that one side of the green is wider than the other, next to the track. I made a couple of stupid mistakes when I was working on it as well, including trying to place down trees using the grabber tool. Yeah. And then I go to expand this band along the tracks here, along the green. And realize it's much wider than the one on the other side, as I said. And I also need to make the distinction as to where I'm going to break off and start putting rock. And I mean, over here, that's pretty clear. Over there, not so much. So I start, I do a lot of this without holding shift so that the trees can kind of stick together as they please. This ends, in some cases, not so satisfactorily. Also, I realize that it can probably do me a little better to bring things in instead of bringing them out, because then I can bring them closer to the track without having to guess where the spline points ought to be. And then this whole back area needs to be treed up. Actually, something I didn't check is if this area was bigger than the one on the other side, which it might be. It's definitely... I have a feeling it's deeper, is the thing. Yeah, those other guys I brought in pretty close to the track because, I don't know, I must have known what I was doing at that point. And I probably wasn't that tired when I was building Temeros. Although, I probably missed something when I was building those switches and going, yeah, this looks fine. But, to be fair, I kind of wedged Temeros in there. Again, one of my biggest regrets is not giving more space in between the towns, but, oh well. That way I would have had more space for the towns. But that's about it for me today. I'll see you guys next week, hopefully with a voice. Train Man out.